Hi, this is Phil Cooke, and welcome to the Phil Cooke Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about filmmaking, and my guest is Ryan Grow, who's running Lifeway Films in Nashville right now. It's interesting that Lifeway has come up through really, Lifeway's been a major publishing entity for the Southern Baptist Church, and they've done Bibles, Holman Publishing, you've heard of those names, and they're just a monster organization doing some amazing work out there. A number of years ago, they launched a filmmaking shingle, and now Ryan is stepping in to make some real changes there, bring it up to date, do some remarkable things. So I'm super excited about that conversation. So if you're a filmmaker, if you're a creative person, and you have an idea for a film you want to pitch, this is an episode to listen to. We're going to learn how to pitch it and how, kind of what he's looking for and how you could fit into that, which could be a very interesting episode. So stay tuned. Ryan Grow, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. I'm thrilled that you are here.
Oh, Phil, it is so great to join you on here. I'm thrilled to death to be here.
Well, for those of you that don't know Ryan, he's the executive producer. Also, he's the head of Lifeway Films based in Nashville. Tell me a little bit about your career, how you got to where you are today. Where did you start out? When, put it this way, when did you first think maybe movies, film, television, media? That's the thing for me.
Yeah, gosh, that is a great question. So I'll try to keep it somewhat abbreviated, but the short of it is grew up actually really leaned into the public speaking sector when I was in college. I majored in public speaking and speech communications and ended up doing this thing called forensics, which was a competitive speech group.
I remember that.
And there was a time that we had to put this the first inkling of really story came about when we had to do something called a POI, which was you had to take all different prose and literature and poetry and all sorts of things, mix it together and do a speech out of this. And I ended up winning nationals for this piece that I ended up doing. And I loved it. And it wasn't even the speech necessarily. It was just the structure, the weaving of a story, being able to tell from really eclectic sources. And so that was kind of the first indication. I ended up attending a program called LAFSC, the Los Angeles Film Studies Center.
I've taught out there. I've taught in that program. Yeah, it's a great program.
Great program. Really, really wonderful people. And kind of got, my feet kind of dipped into the water a little bit. But at the time, I really wanted to be an actor. That's what I thought I wanted to be. Long story short, God had other plans. That was not the path, which now in retrospect, I'm thankful for me. I know there's a lot of wonderful friends and people in that world, but that I'm just so thankful that I was behind the camera. But fast forward about 2 years after that experience at LAFSC, my wife and I had just gotten married, and we were in Springfield, Missouri. And at the time, I was selling insurance and just hating it, just absolutely could not stand it, and just praying. And I was at a worship service, and all I can say is, like, very few times in my life, I just knew that the Lord was just speaking to me, and it was so clear. And he almost like turned a switch in my heart from wanting to be in front of the camera to wanting to be behind the camera. And so I started a little tiny production company doing weddings, real estate videos, anything that I could trick somebody to hire me for. I was real cheap. I mean, I was the cheapest in town by a long shot. So,
and where were you? Where were you at this time? Where were you?
So I was in Springfield, Missouri at the time. We did that for 2 years, and then we actually moved to Florida. So we were in Florida for a number of years. I ended up working for a church down near Bradenton, Sarasota area for about 3.5 years, 4 years. And at that time, it was the DSLR revolution. It was 2010 to 2014 range, and just creating and creating week after week, and just loved it. Absolutely loved it. And during that time, though, was when I was first involved with my first feature film, which was called Ragamuffin, which, years ago that happened. So that was my first dip into the movie world. Loved it. Confirmed that was exactly what I would love to be doing with my life. But it wasn't until years later, and I'll skip all the details, but we went up to Maine for a while, and then we eventually took an opportunity at Lifeway Christian Resources in Nashville. And so we ended up moving to Nashville back in 2020. And about 2.5 years into that, this role opened up to be head of Lifeway Films, and the Lord just really reemerged because I won't go into it right now, but I had to let the dream completely die utterly, and then the Lord just resurrected it very unexpectedly in my life, and so now we're taking steps towards trying to do something in the cinema space, but really holding hands and being a good partner with others, and doing some content creation along the way.
You know, it's interesting. You have no idea how many people I've interviewed on this podcast that have said right before the big dream project happened, they let their dream die. It's just really interesting. They had to just give it to God. I'm done with it. I'm walking away. You know, I heard somebody that last week tell me, they were talking about Romans chapter 12, I think the first few verses about, it's just forget it. Just forget it. You know, I'm ready to walk away. And in that you find your purpose and your calling. It's just really interesting that people, they just, it's kind of the don't care verse. I don't care, God, I'm just going to give it to you, whatever you want. And suddenly they find their purpose. So that's an interesting thing.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, I think it's something that is just beautiful that the Lord does in that, like in the relinquishing of something that you truly feel at your core called to and love. And when that's able to be genuinely relinquished to the Lord, man, he's able to take that and do things further and farther than we could have ever imagined, which I know you have experienced in your life. In many ways. So
let me ask you this. Now, Lifeway is interesting. A lot of people don't really understand Lifeway. Lifeway historically has been kind of the publisher, the resource center for the Southern Baptist world, right?
Correct. Yeah. For a long time, we've been around since, I believe, is 1893. So a long time. We're actually the longest, other than a government entity, we are the longest organization here in Nashville. So it's over 130 years now, which is pretty incredible.
And you've been big with Bible publishing. Lifeway is, I think, Holman is the brand name under the Bibles that they publish, correct?
Correct. Holman Bible Publishing, and now specifically the CSB, the Christian Standard Bible, is the translation that is under that banner. We also have B&H Publishing, and then Lifeway publishes numerous Bible studies, curriculum, VBS events for all different age demographics and groups, especially in the kids ministry world. So just at the end of the day, the whole entire slogan, which I think sums it up, is we design trustworthy experiences that fuel ministry. And that is the entire heart of the organization.
And although it's kind of connected with the Southern Baptist denomination, everybody uses it. I know Assembly of God churches, Methodist churches, all kind of Pentecostal churches, everybody uses your material because it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
And it seemed like 6 or 8 years ago, Lifeway moved from downtown Nashville to Brentwood. You know, what was that about?
Yes, absolutely. So a few years ago, I'm forgetting now, maybe like it was about 4 years ago, we actually made that transition. But essentially, our CEO, Ben Mandrell, really, I feel like in so many ways, just was able to culturally turn us towards just really this beautiful, getting all the cultural things you really need as an organization from that standpoint, and ended up selling all of our downtown real estate and shifting to a model of a work from anywhere company, which at the time was very revolutionary for Lifeway. It was during COVID, so a lot of companies were already kind of going that way, but we ended up in totality saying, hey, we're going to make the strategic move. We're going to hire nationwide now, and just open up the gate. And so I'm not exactly sure what the percentages are, but a healthy percentage, maybe 60%, I'm probably getting that wrong, of our employees work remotely, and about 40-50% are here in town, but not required to come into the office. And that I think has been a huge game changer for me, is that we have a beautiful creative space now in Brentwood that's just, it's awesome. And everyone finds an office. So it's funny to even see our CEO and our VPs, they're looking for an office like everyone else. So they come in, you find your space, but what it does, I think on a relational level, it flattens everything to where you're able to talk around the coffee maker, you're around it. It's just a really relational atmosphere now, that before it was a little bit more buttoned up corporate, and it felt that way.
So it's really true. There are rumors out there. Nobody has an official office at Lifeway. Is that right?
That is correct.
And I have to say, I met with you there, did some other events there, attended some other events there, and it's an amazing, amazing space. I mean, it was really one of the best designed, creative design places I've ever seen. I mean, you have studios and conference rooms, but you have rooms, it's designed where you can meet with one person, you can meet with 5 people, then there are rooms that you can meet with 10 or 20 or 100 or 200. It's just interesting the way it's designed so you can, go in, book the office size you need or the space, creative space you need. I mean, there's some places that look like an artist studio. It's just really quite amazing in that place. So I'm 50-50 on the work from home thing, but I love your phrase, work from anywhere. And it's really not designed to send people home, just to give them flexibility, which I think ultimately is probably what the thing to do.
Yeah, and that's really the heart of it is the flexibility, especially. And I don't think it's right for every single company. Different companies have different needs, but I know for Lifeway, it works really well in that it energizes our people. We've had different reports on the health scores of the internal organization, and those are extremely high, like off the charts high. And I think this plays a vital role in that, because at the end of the day, it's special. It's a Christian organization, and Lifeway does trust its employees. Hey, you're at the end of the day, you could probably get a better paying job somewhere else, but we're in it for the ministry component that this is, and they really trust their employees to actionize that.
Well, it's this isn't a commercial for Lifeway, but it is. Honestly, I've worked with so many large ministry organizations over the years, and Lifeway could have been a situation where they became stuck in an old way of doing things. Traditional, not interested in change. And yet this is one of the largest ministry organizations in the country. And yet they completely, did a 180-degree turn and have taken a whole new path. Now, in all of that, how did Lifeway Films emerge? When did they decide, okay, we need to get into the medium of filmmaking? How did all that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So historically, we back when Fireproof came out. So this is years ago now, probably. Yep. Oh goodness, I don't even know the date.
Was that Alex Kendrick's first film? I think it was his first film, right?
That was I think their third film technically. So they had done Facing. They had done Facing the Giants.
A couple small things.
Yeah, you're right. Flywheel, then Facing the Giants, and then really, Fireproof was their first. Okay, here we're going to step in that way. Well, Lifeway created in tandem with them the Love Dare book that was referenced in the movie. And at the time, I believe I heard this. I don't know if this is, don't hold me to it, but I had heard it was one of, if not the best-selling resource we had created of all time, which is saying something. Yeah. So it sold like hotcakes, and we were like, wow, this is unbelievable. And not just from a revenue standpoint, but so many marriages were revitalized and saved. And it just was such a beautiful ministry component that happened. And so at that time, Lifeway Films was birthed because they saw the power of tethering resource with cinema and what that could do. And so for a long time, Lifeway Films was really in this it went through different iterations, but essentially it was, a conduit to the SBC, to the Southern Baptist Convention, so that movies could let people know, hey, we have a Christian film or a faith based film that's coming out, and so Lifeway Films would point towards those things, work in more of a marketing partner component for many years. Eventually, we became kind of a low level distributor in that we had a few different films that were under our banner that we'd help get out there and help actionize. And then eventually, when I took over the reins, almost 2 years ago now. When that happened, at the time, it just, COVID had unfortunately wreaked havoc. Yeah. Just organizationally, they weren't exactly sure what they wanted to do with Lifeway Films. So it had largely gone dormant, although not completely. We were still obviously doing some things, but there was a thought of, okay, what's possible? What could we do? Yeah. There was a lot of ideas around that. And so when I came in, I kind of came in like a tornado at first, just trying to okay, let's do this thing. And it's been a lot of discovery, but I think we're hopefully landing somewhere pretty beautiful.
That's fantastic. And what give me a glimpse of what are plans. I mean, are you creating resources for churches? Are you creating films for theaters? We did, our team at Cooke Media Group years ago produce The Insanity of God, based on Nick Ripkin's book that Lifeway was a part of, and they helped make that a Fathom event. And it was, I have to say, Lifeway marched the troops out. The Southern Baptists came out to see that film, and it's, I think, one of the highest rated Fathom events they've done. And so what are you thinking that the new Lifeway Films is all about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are right now deeply exploring. So there's always there's always different bridges to cross, and we're still in that thing. But as we've been able to distill down, at least currently, what the plan is, what the hope is really a 3-part strategy that myself and my direct report, and then also one of our VPs, really helped shape. And then pitch to our executive team, which they were very excited about. And essentially it's 3 different things. The first thing is that we're going to take a step. Well, let me back up. Right now, it seems like we're not stepping into the narrative space currently. And one of the reasons for that is that there was a lot of people in the narrative space. There was a lot of meaningful work being done in those worlds. And we thought, just from who we serve, like at the end of the day, our core customer, our who we serve, our ministry leaders. That is really our core customer is the ministry leader. And so everything, all the framework is focused on how can we serve them well? How can we really enable what they're doing and help propel them to reach their church, their world, their community, everything. So in that light, we said, okay, not yet for narrative, but what if we started on the documentary front? And so the first part is we're going to be creating roughly 2 to 4 documentary feature films that will be widely possible theatrical release. The hope is that they are worthy to live on a major streamer. That is the hope, that we're able to, that the quality and the exploration of what we're exploring is something meaningful, beautiful, worthy of even a theatrical experience. So the slate is TBD, but we're excited on a few fronts of what that could look like. The second part, which I think the organization is probably most energized about, is something I'm just internally just saying short documentary films. Yeah. And this will be our first YouTube based strategy, to where these will live on YouTube on purpose, giving them away to the church. And essentially, these are really exploratory short documentary films that are a little bit more journalistic in framework, but are presented in really a docu format and framework, to where each one of these will be extremely specific, because I think the tone of voice matters. Yeah. And so if we're talking to ministry leaders, we're going to be able to explore things that most people aren't able to explore. And we're doing it out of a love for the church, not as a, hey, we want, I got you. We're wanting to explore the pain points, the issues, the victories, the discoveries, the beauty. There's all sorts of areas we can explore within that sandbox. And so at the end of the day, I would love for each one of those films to be truly valuable to that ministry leader, to where it's something that's worthy to be seen. And it won't just be nice testimony stories, although there will be that, but it won't just be compiled of that. It will be a lot of, why is this happening? What if we explore this? But it'll all be through the lens of human interest, of that we're exploring stories within that. So it's not we're just like, we have a supposition and let's just tell you that. That's not what the heart is. The heart is to genuinely explore it and to do a docu in that. So anyway, that's the second stage. The third and final one is something that I'm just internally calling bridge content. I don't really have a name for it yet, but essentially what that's going to be is Lifeway Films, I hope, can act as a bridge to help the church get to know the cinema world, get to know my people, the passion, the projects, everything from behind the scenes content to interviews and discussions. There's maybe vignettes. There's a lot of things that we can potentially explore to really help the church get to know our filmmakers and people in this space. Because right now, that's what I'm seeing as one of the biggest gaps, is that the church they don't know. They have a cold IMDb page they're looking at to decipher, is this safe content? Is this right for my church? There's no way that the church is going to point towards something that they're not quite sure about. Yeah, and so this hopefully can help build on a small level a relational bridge to the industry.
Well, I love the fact that it's what's the saying in marketing? It's not enough to know what you're good at. You also need to know what you're not good at.
Yeah.
And like you say, so many people are doing narrative. We focus, our team at Cook Media Group, we focus on documentary stuff. And because I just love it. I mean, if you look at the statistics from Netflix and Amazon Prime, people love documentary films, whether they're, true crime stories or historical documentaries or social cause efforts, whatever. I just love the fact that you're focusing like that. And it makes a big, big difference. Now, let me ask you this. You've done this for a while. If there's something that you see Christian filmmakers, put it this way, what are Christian filmmakers not doing well? As a studio head, I mean, essentially you're running a studio now. You're going to be pitched a lot of ideas. I'm sure you've been pitched some horrible ones already.
Once or twice, but it's okay.
Give me a couple tips for filmmakers that are watching this right now. What do you see they're doing wrong? What could they do better? Give me some thoughts along that line.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So there's so many different things because I'll say this, Phil, it all matters. It all matters.
Yeah.
And meaning that everything from, I think the core motivation of why is this, why do you need to tell the story? And if it's just for sizzle or just because you have a point you want to get across, I don't know. There's just certain things. I think the motivation is key in telling that story, because there's, especially for a lot of these projects, there are going to be so many road bumps that occur. And if you've been doing filmmaking for any amount of time, that it's just, there are so many roadblocks, and you'll need more than just I think this will work kind of thing. It's there's really a core motivation that needs to be there of saying, well, why? Why does this even matter? But then beyond that too, of just working together with people, collaboration is so vital. You can, and I have before, one man band trying to get it all done, but that will only take you so far. In that collaboration is so key, and so finding people that you can really hold hands with and be with, and that there's and that at the end of the day, pride and hubris and ego is not the factor of why that's happening. Because my goodness, that I feel blows up more things than almost anything else. Of just making sure that I'm X, Y, or Z. We'll just serve. I know a big thing too, when I was on set, even when I was younger, and I was a first AC on one narrative film and a gaffer on another, and I just remember seeing just the crew and how the crew is treated. Make sure you're tethering yourself with the right people, because at the end of the day, I'm totally convinced of this. If you're not willing to treat the PA in the same human regard as you're going to treat your star talent, then there's a gap, and it really needs to be no, we value people, period. We value people, everyone, because everyone's important to through that process. So I'd say value people in the process, and even when you're looking at specifically any Christian or faith-based type of content, analyze it, get feedback. Don't get offended if people are saying, I'm not so sure about this dialogue doesn't really read true, because there have been plenty of projects where I've had to I'm sorry, it just doesn't feel right. There was one filmmaker that had a bigger film, and I was like, the climax is in the wrong the wrong area. I think it would be better over here, but he didn't take offense. There were certain things that if you're quick to be offended, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. Being able to take notes, incorporate that, and it's okay. You can weigh them. You don't have to incorporate every single note. You can weigh that because at the end of the day, the Lord's given you that project, but also try to, I'm very, very, very big on understanding nuance and understanding if you think this XYZ project, for instance, is going to the church, and the church is the core market for what you're creating, the movie you're writing, then know the church, understand it. And there's certain things, dialogue choices, scenes. There's so many different things within that of just understanding, hey, this is out of bounds. This is permissible. This is and it's not that, oh wait, I can't have anything, there's no conflict. It's no, you can have all those things, but it has to be done in a way that's really that's prudent and mindful. And you have to think at the end of the day, and I would resonate too with really Alex and Stephen Kendrick on this too. If you have to remember at the end of the day, this is especially in narrative. These are actors we're dealing with. These are humans. They have families. They have souls. Do not be asking them to do something that quite honestly puts them in a very compromising position and thing, because that's not loving people well. And that's not what I don't think we've been called to on that level. So I think, anyway, I digress.
Good. That was
Too many things, Phil.
No, and and on a it made me think, in a very practical level, I often tell filmmakers, look, you're not just a filmmaker, you're a fundraiser. You need to accept that. The minute people come to a studio or they come to a producer, if they have some ideas for how to make this happen financially, that puts them in the front of the line. I mean, there's a million guys in Hollywood, I can tell you, with their hat in their hand, asking for money to do their project. But if you come to the table and if you've thought this out, and either you have the money or someone who does, or you have a plan for it, anything that would help move the project forward will get you attention, which is
absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head, though. Preparedness. That's the biggest. Honestly, that's probably the biggest differentiator in a lot of ways of like, are you prepared? Because timing does matter. If a theoretical, just say you came to me and said, hey, there's this project we'd love to do, but you don't have a pitch deck. You're not exactly sure where things are living yet. I'm happy to have a conversation, but there's nowhere we can go with that. And so being able to really have your ducks in a row, understanding the story structure, understanding the nuances. You don't have to have all the business roadmap laid out. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned too, is like, you don't have to have every single piece, but what you do need to have is you need to know the story really well. You need to know the story.
That's good. That's good. Well, all right. Thank you for doing this today. Let me ask you this. If there was one thing you could leave with people in the way they should be thinking about Lifeway Films, the future of Lifeway, positioning you in their minds, what would you leave people with?
Oh, gracious, Phil. That's a
great
big question.
That was a big question.
Oh, man. I guess I'll just leave you with a hope.
Okay.
I hope, my hope would be that Lifeway Films and everything that I'd be able to put my hands to, and really our team would be able to put our hands to, not only can glorify the Lord within that, though, but we'd be able to hold hands with Him in being able to tell stories that would otherwise not be told.
Yeah,
and that is the hope in this docu effort, is that the content we're exploring, hopefully, can be unlike different content initiatives that have been there. It's not evangelistic in that way. It is really, at the end of the day, exploring things within the choir, as it were, to encourage, to lift up, to challenge,
great,
and all those things.
And I love the short film category. Maybe it's because I've been in advertising for so many years. I mean, you could tell a remarkable story in 30 seconds, and we see it all the time with brilliant ads. So a 3, 4, 5 minute film, short film, you can do amazing things with. And
absolutely,
I love to see. And I've always, my pet peeve has been, as Christian producers, as Christian filmmakers, we often have a limited budget, but we want to do a narrative film. So we do this dramatic film on a super limited budget that stinks. It's terrible. When that same budget would do a remarkable documentary. It would be a great budget for an amazing documentary. So I'd love to shift more Christians' thinking from feeling like they're compelled to do dramatic features. That's great. I love them. But at the same time, if you have a limited budget or limited resources, whatever.
Absolutely. And Phil, I'll just add one little thing on top of that too, that I completely agree. Variety, which is one of the industry trade magazines, ended up doing a report maybe a few months back now, basically identifying what in the faith sector, what's missing content wise from a content perspective. Number one was family. Right behind it, though, the thing that was right behind it was documentaries. That there is something truly missing. And so if you're looking at it from, it's possible to tell the narratives. Absolutely. I get the heart for that. I understand the heart for that. But man, documentaries, I know when I'm left to my own devices, I love documentaries so much.
Yeah, oh, it's great. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. We'll be looking out. We'll put all your information in the show notes so people can go for more reference and find out more about what Lifeway's doing and track with the new vision, the new launch, the new project.
Thank you,
appreciate you being around.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime, Phil. This is such a pleasure.
Well, I'm really excited that Ryan would come on the podcast, and I'm just really interested in Lifeway and his new ideas and some of the things they're going to do. So stay tuned. I may have him back, and we'll talk about some more things like that in the future. And in the meantime, check out my blog at philcooke.com, because I'm writing about these kind of issues, whether it's filmmaking, media production, leadership, creative stuff, particularly leading creative people, which is incredibly important. If you're going to go very far in your career, you need to be thinking about that. And don't forget my book, Ideas on a Deadline, How to Be Creative When the Clock is Ticking. If you don't have that and you're a creative person, you're making a big mistake. And to my knowledge, it's the only book on how to be creative when the pressure's on. When you have to have that report by Tuesday, or that script by next week, or that program finished and edited by Tuesday, whatever it is. We live by deadlines in the creative world. Unless you're just sitting on the back porch doing watercolors, you need this book. So, Ideas on a Deadline, you can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or you can get it by making a donation to the Influence Lab, influencelab.com. I'd encourage you to check that option out, because it could really make a big difference for a lot of people. So, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.